We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Samech Zayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 167a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was dealing with the case of a document, and it said 600 and a zuz. It didn't say what kind of denomination the 600 was. And Abaye said on the previous summit, it is certainly not talking about 600 prutos, because people will generally combine prutos into a smaller denomination. Umashvi luhu zuze, for example, instead of writing prutos, they'll write it in the terms of zuze, which are dinarim. That's a higher denomination. Now, my Amr, now what are you going to say? What's the other option? If it's not talking about 600 zuz, what is the other option? Shisma'ah istri v'zuzah, you'll say it's 600 istri and a zuz. And as we said on the previous summit, an istri is a larger denomination than a zuz. And to that, the Gemara says, Yad bal hashtar ala tachtona. The person who has the shtar has the lower hand, and therefore you should assume that it means 600 zuz and not 600 istri. And the Rashbam over here explains, Yad bal hashtar la tachtona, v'lesle ela istri. The way the Rashbam first explains is according to what Rabbeinu Hananel says, that the al hatachtona means istri, that's the lower denomination. The inun kol astira palga dezuza, because an astira is actually a half a zuz, kach perish rach. That's Rabbeinu Hananel's explanation. In other words, according to Rabbeinu Hananel, the issue over here, according to Abaye, is whether we should understand it to be a zuz or an istri, which is a half a zuz, and we say istri because that's the lower denomination. However, the Rashbam says, Venirali, it appears to me, the zuzah yikabel, that actually if you're between a zuz and an istri, actually a zuz is the lower denomination. That's the way we explained it on the previous summit. The astire have a sloim, because astire actually refers to sloim, and sloim are a higher denomination than dinarim. V'yesh b'chol echad arba dinarim, every sela has 4 dinar. Aval astira pshite inhu v'ad, I have a palga de zuzah. Now the Rashbam does note, if the word would be astira and not istri, then actually it would be a half a zuz. That is smaller. That is a smaller denomination than a zuz. The hainu sela medina, because that refers to the provincial sela. Kedamin Babba Kama, like we say in Bava Kama, Gavi hatokei lechaveru bu'uvda dechanan bisha. That's an episode of Bava Kama, and so therefore again the Rashbam explains that the zuz over here would be the lower denomination. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaye says, Haiman deboy lemichve chasimos yade bebeidin. If somebody wants to demonstrate his signature in court, let's say he wants to verify that this is his signature, so he wants to sign in front of the court, lo lichvi besof megilta. He shouldn't sign, he shouldn't demonstrate it at the end of the scroll, at the end of the parchment, because dilma mashgach la'acher, because maybe somebody else is going to find this piece of paper, v'chasav demasik bezuze, and then he's going to write above the signature that this person owes him money. Utnan, and we learned in a Mishnah, if somebody has a document with the person's own handwriting that this person is chayiv to him, is obligated to him money, so gova minachasim b'nei chorin, that document is considered effective and he can collect from free property. And so therefore, if he's going to demonstrate his signature, he should not write it at the end of the piece of paper, because again, someone unscrupulous is going to find it and write in that this person owes him money. And the Gemara continues, Hahu bazbina do'asa lakame de Abaye. There was a certain tax collector who came before Abaye. Amar Lei said to him, Nichzi limar chasimas yade, can the master demonstrate for me his signature? T'chiyasu Rabbanan, because when Rabbanan come to me, machvuli, they show me a piece of paper with your signature that attests to the fact that they are in fact Rabbanan, that they are in fact scholars, and ma'varna luhu below michsa, I let them pass without having to pay the tax, because your signature confirms that they're in fact Torah scholars. So achvilei bereish megilta, so Abaye, he started to demonstrate his signature at the top of the parchment. Have a kenogid bay, and the tax collector was pulling at the parchment so that the signature would be a little lower, because he wanted to use the piece of paper in order to collect against Abaye, to create a forgery. Amar Lei, so Abaye said to him, Kvar kidmach the Rabbanan already anticipated people like you, that's why I'm signing at the top of the document. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaye says, Mitlos v'ad eser, from the number 3 until the number 10, lo lichto b'sof shita, don't write those numbers at the end of a line, and dilma mizayef, because maybe someone will cause a forgery, v'chasav, and he'll increase that number by just adding a couple of letters, v'isr milei, now if it does happen that he's writing a document and one of these numbers comes up at the end of the line, nahadre l'diburi, he should repeat that number, train in telas azimni 2 or 3 times, yefshar delo misar milei b'emsa shita, it's impossible that at one point in time it won't be in the middle of a line, and we're always going to follow, as we said, the bottom of the contract. And the Rashbam explains, Amar Abaye says, Mitlos v'ad yud lo lichto b'sof hashita, from the number 3 until the number 10, don't write those numbers at the end of a line. The mizayif, because a person can easily forge. V'chasav litzlos tilsin ular ba'arboin, and he can change 3 to tilsin to 30, he can change 4 to 40, ulachamish chamshin, he can change 5 to 50, v'chein ad eser yichtov leser esr, and he can do that all the way up till the number 10. He he can change the word eser to esrin. Aval achad aser, but the number 11, eino yachal is yufe. You're not able to forge that. Tetzarech lemichtav echad vi esrim, because you're going to have to write echad vi esrim. V'chichasav bein achad aser vav, and if you're going to put a vav there in between, nira dachok uminkar, it's going to be obvious that you're changing things. And the Gemara then said, vi isrami lei arba o chamesh besof shita. Now, if it does happen that the number 4, the number 5 lands at the end of a line, lahadr v'litkre, just mention that number again. Lahai skuma ad misrami lei be'emsa, just keep mentioning it until you write it in the middle of a line. Be'emsa shita. Diafilu im yazayif, because then even if you're going to forge the upper one, v'chasav, he's going to write something that's not true. Ein lameidin element atachton kediktani masison. We always learn from the place where it's mentioned the lowest at the most bottom point on the document, and so therefore it's no concern in such a case. And the Gemara continues, there was a contract, there was a star that said 1/3 of the orchard, that's what's being sold. Azal mochke lagage de beis. So the purchaser, the buyer, he went ahead and he erased the top of the beis, v'kare, and also the bottom of the beis, v'shavya upardesa, and he made it look like upardesa, meaning I'm selling you 1/3 of the garden, and I'm also selling you the entire orchard. Azal lakame de Abaye, came before Abaye, this contract was shown to Abaye. Amar Lei said to him, "My time reviach le'alma lahai vav. Why is there so much space around this vav?" So Kafse, so he tied him up, v'odi, and then the buyer admitted that he had forged the document. And the Gemara continues, there was a document, and it said that the portions of Reuven and Shimon who are brothers, that's what's being sold. Now Reuven and Shimon happened to have a brother whose name was Achi. So Azal Kasabei Vav, so the buyer, he went ahead and he inserted a Vav, he inserted the letter Vav before the word Achi. Veshavya V'Achi, and so therefore the document now said that the portions of Reuven and Shimon and the portion of Achi, those are all being sold. Azal Lakame de Abaye, so that document came before Abaye. Amarle said to him, "My time adochik le'alma lahai vav kuli hai." Why is it that this vav is so crowded? It looks like somebody put the vav where it did not belong. Kafse, so he tied up the buyer va'odi, and he admitted again that he forged the document, that he added that vav inappropriately. And the Gemara continues, there was a document, and signed upon it was Rava and Ravacha Barada's signatures. Also, Lakame de Rava, this document came before Rava. Amar Lei said to him, Dein Chasimas Yudah Didi, he, this in fact is my signature. Miyukame de Ravacha Barada, lo Chasim Ali Me'olam, but I've never signed anything together with Ravacha Barada. Kafse, so he tied him up, Va'odi, and again he admitted that it was all a forgery. Amar Lei, now Rava said to him, to the person who forged the document, Bishlama Didi Zayaft, I understand that you forged my signature, that's possible. Ela de Ravacha Barada, de Rosis Yode, but Ravacha Barada, his hand trembles. Hechi Avadet, how did you do it? How were you able to forge his signature? Amar, so he said, Anchi Yedoy Mitzra, I put my hand on this rope that's used as part of a bridge, and so it shakes, that caused my hand to shake. V'amri lo, some have the version, Kam Azarnuka v'chasav, that I stood upon a water skin which was wobbly, and again, that way my whole body shook, and I signed in that fashion, and that's how I was able to duplicate his signature. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Kosvin get la'ish afa pishein ishto imo, a scribe is able to write a get, a divorce document for a husband, even though the wife is not present. V'hashover laisha, and he can also write the receipt for the wife. That's the receipt that she gives when she receives the payment of her ksuba. Afa pishein balo imo, even though the husband is not present. Uvilvad shehei makira, and as long as the scribe recognizes the individuals, the husband and the wife, he can write these documents in this fashion. V'habal nosein schar, and the husband is the one that has to pay for these documents. And the Rashbam explains, Kosvin get leish, Kosvin v'chosmin lo. It means we write the document and we sign it. He can use the document to divorce his wife whenever he wants. Now, even though his wife is not with him at the time the scribe is giving him the get, kesov v'chasom, and the get is already written and signed, because you don't need her consent, because she's divorced against her will, so the scribe can write up the get, the document, in full with the signatures and give it to the husband, and he'll give it to the wife when he wants. And the same the other way around. V'shover leisha, the receipt can be given to the woman, afal pishein bala ima, even though the husband is not with her. Delidida chovu, because for her the receipt is bad, because if the husband gets his hand on the receipt, that shows that he paid the ksuba. Well, the bala have his chus, the receipt is something that's good for the husband. V'zachin la'adam shelo b'fanav, so therefore you can do something good for someone when he's not present, even if he's not there, we can write up the shover. V'hitzricha lihizarbo, she'll have to be careful with it. it, shelo yavo liyad bala, that it shouldn't come to the possession of her husband, ad shetekabel kesef ksubas, until she actually receives the money of her ksuva. Uvilvad shehei makir, and he can do this as long as he recognizes the parties. Begemar mefarish lo, the Gemara will explain exactly what this means. V'habal nosein schar haget taima mefarish begemara, and the husband pays for both of these documents in terms of the get. The reason will be explained in the Gemara. With schar hashover, in terms of paying for the shover, deschusahu, because the shover is for his benefit. Zelo tedar v'tigba ksubasa, that way she doesn't go ahead and collect her ksuba zimna achrisa another time, and that's why he pays for that. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Zayin Amid Beis.